Hey everyone, before we jump into the video, if you haven't seen part 1, check it out right here.
Otherwise, and without further ado, let's go dive into the next 4 generations.
Released in North America in early 2011, Pokemon Black and White hit the world by storm with a completely new Pokédex, which didn't even include any old Pokemon until the post-game that also took the world by storm. There were now 3 new starters which, again, took the world by storm and... Alright, we apologize for saying that so many times in the last video. To introduce the 5th generation of Pokemon games and to show that they still got it, Game Freak added 156 brand new Pokemon, the largest expansion of the Pokédex to date, and even more than the original games in the series, Red and Blue. Either as an homage to the originals or out of sheer laziness. A lot of the new Pokemon designs were reminiscent of the original 151 Pokemon, which was sort of fitting seeing as the original Japanese release of Red and Green was approaching its 15th anniversary.
Or to put it into terms that relate to our own Pokemon journeys, David and I were entering into high school, and as a lot of Pokemon fans our age, we lost interest in the series, either due to fatigue, or simply no longer having the time, or a combination of both. And as we both pursued different passions and interests, our generation left a gap for the next generation of fans to fill. Kids who were born after 2000 really didn't have a chance to grow up with the series like we had. Sure, there might have been a little bit of overlap with Diamond and Pearl, but given how many memes and general praise towards and conversation about the 5th generation of games have popped up in recent years, it's safe to say that there were a lot of new fans introduced to the series with Gen 5 more than any other. Black and White and their subsequent sequels mean a whole lot to a whole lot of people, and David and I were just getting off of the train as they were getting on. Little did we know just how popular these titles were until the kids that started in Unova grew up and were able to reminisce on Black and White and the journeys that they carried with them.
As far as the games themselves go, Black and White did a lot to make things nicer. It added seasons, which we saw snow back in Diamond and Pearl, but just in one city, so it was cool to be able to see the whole region change. Poison no longer made your screen shake every 5 steps, which was very nice, and TMs no longer broke after one use. So go ahead, teach Flamethrower to your entire team. It don't matter to me. Then you got Team Plasma. Is it me, or do they just look like they're straight out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Also the 7 Sages? How about the 7 Sages the Triforce?
The villain team that terrorizes these games felt like a genuine threat, and one that loomed over your entire journey throughout the Unova region. In a fresh twist, Team Plasma don't seek to rule the world, but instead believe in the liberation of Pokemon from their trainers, with N as their king and leader who claims that he will capture one of Unova's legendary Pokemon and defeat the Elite Four and champion, thereby becoming the region's hero and able to convince everyone to willingly release their partners.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Along the way, there are plenty of new phases to meet and mechanics to learn and play with. We got new ways to battle in both triple battles and rotation battles, which each presented their own unique set of challenges and strategies.
Not every aspect of gameplay was great though. HMs are back, but fortunately for us, Game Freak decided to revamp HMs by taking Rock Smash, Whirlpool, and Rock Climb and flying those the hell out of Pokemon, never to be seen again.
Clear the deck! Cannonball! And then there's the sequels. Not too much was added as far as gameplay goes, so there's not much to touch on here other than Pokestar Studios, similar to contests in that they're super flashy Pokemon showcases, and the Pokemon World Tournament, which lets you fight trainers from other regions. The true reason to revisit the Unova region in these games is for the sake of sequeling the plot, similar to how Gold and Silver did to Kanto.
However, other than a few new towns to visit and some new characters among other small changes, I still personally prefer Gold and Silver as sequels than these games. With Black and White 2, you're stuck exploring the same region again as opposed to a new one on top of that, which is one of the reasons Gen 5 never appealed to me as much. In retrospect, I wish I had paid more attention to the original Black and White though, as playing through these games now brings a strange melancholy in that I can't ever remember these games as fondly as those who grew up with them. I think that's one of Pokemon's appeals for me personally, but I just never got that with the Gen 5 titles. I mean, I can appreciate them for what they are and how they impacted the series, sure, but I just can't ever see them being the games that I think of whenever someone mentions Pokemon to me years down the line. I just don't have the same love for them.
Overall, Pokemon Black and Black 2 just totally went right over my head. I mean, I started playing Black in early 2015, but I only got the first 2 badges. Then for whatever reason, I stopped for 4 entire years and didn't actually finish them until around summer of 2019. Yeah, only last year. Yeah, I've been working on this for a long time. So, not last year anymore. Just several months before Sword and Shield came out. And because of this, I honestly don't even remember them that much, but I do remember enjoying them decently well as I was going through them. It was still on the DS, so it still had that same feeling as Diamond and Pearl did. Almost as if I just rediscovered something I never knew. Because that's exactly what happened. It's just a game that came out in the wrong time in my life. It took several years for me to return to Pokemon. For some reason, the spark randomly came back in late 2013, just before an even newer generation of Pokemon was coming out. A massive milestone in the Pokemon catalog was on its way, as things were never going to look the same again.
Released in October of 2013, Pokemon X and Y brought fans into a new dimension, quite literally the third dimension, by being the first main series game released on the Nintendo 3DS, allowing players to witness classic Pokemon moments and mechanics on 3 glorious axes. Not to mention, the fact that this was not only the first Pokemon game to have a simultaneous worldwide release, but also the first Nintendo-published retail game in all of video game history to be released globally. Based in the Kalos region, which itself was based on real-life France, X and Y placed players in the shoes of either Calum or Serena, the first fully customizable Pokemon protagonists, and as we go on in this analysis, you'll realize that X and Y are all about adding stuff. More! Sick of playing Pokemon in just 2 dimensions? Boom, here's a third. Used to just 1 or 2 rivals? Boom, how about 4? Used to giving your character 1 name? Boom, get a name and a nickname. Tired of using just 1 starter throughout the game? Boom, go ahead and pick a Kanto starter so we can show off Mega Evolution.
As we mentioned earlier, X and Y were the games that got us back into the series. They did a lot of things right, like introducing Mega Evolutions, which at first felt a little weird, but over time, they became a great addition to the franchise. Until they went away. After many generations, we finally got introduced to a brand new type, Fairy, which finally was able to put Dragon type in its place with its everything is not very effective against me attitude, even though personally it took me forever to get used to all those retroactive changes to dozens of Pokemon.
And while a lot of changes were nice and really improved the quality of life for the series overall, such as changing every single Pokemon from a static sprite to a fully moving 3D model, not every change was met with a warm reception. For one thing, on the topic of sprites, some of them just don't look good. Take Typhlosion for example. Look at this man. Amazing in every single way. Now look at this.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Another change that really grinds my gears is the addition of Horde encounters. This is where you'll face 6 Pokemon in the wild at once, and boy, does the game not seem to like it very much either. Not only are they tedious if you don't have a move like Surf or Earthquake to take them all out at once, but it slows down the game so much since there's that much more to process. Every action, selecting a move, running away, etc., just takes that much longer, and it's an obnoxious addition that really only helps shiny hunters and early game players to rack up experience.
We have entered a new realm of Pokemon with it being 3D and everything. And yet, HMs are still plaguing the series.
No!
Another really weird thing is that we have this new thumb pad on the 3DS, but unless you're roller skating, you can still only move in even directions. You can move diagonally, but why does a full 360 movement only apply to the rollerblades? Also, just a personal gripe of mine, but like, what's with the stupid ass names? X and Y? When I first heard this, I thought it was a joke. Like, how about Pokemon Stick and Stone, or Pokemon Thing 1 and Thing 2? But then I thought, oh wow, it's because they're the first 3D games, so XYZ,
Right.
the 3D axis.
Yeah.
But no, there's no Z. They never had a Z, so it's just X and Y, but they're 3D games, but they're still in 2D because it's just X and Y and... Alright, anyway, back on topic.
Despite all of the negative criticism, Gen 6 still introduced a lot of neat additions to the franchise that are iconic to this day. I think that Mega Evolution is still the coolest mechanic ever brought to a Pokemon game, since it takes your favorite Pokemon and just buffs the hell out of them, on top of giving them new designs and, for some, even new typings. And the step to 3D really helped set the stage for the rest of the series going forward, but all the cool stuff doesn't outweigh the fact that Pokemon X and Y are just forgettable. Despite being about adding more and more, these games ironically added the least amount of new Pokemon to the Pokédex, a measly 72, with only a few standouts among way too many fairy types to accommodate the new meta. Despite having 4 rivals, they don't have nearly as strong an impact on the story that older rivals have when there's just one of them, and the champion of this region is rather lackluster as well. She and the rest of the league are pretty easy to beat, which is a shame since the Elite Four and champion music of this generation freaking slap. Along with the dull plans of Team Flare and Lysander, the big bads of this game didn't feel like anything special either.
Overall, despite these games being important by converting the whole series into 3D and getting us back into the series, looking back, they really weren't anything special. The games felt huge, especially in Lumio City, where there were little shops and massive buildings and taxis. Whoa, there were actual cars in this game. I mean, you had an occasional truck here and there in the past, but this game actually looked like real life. For some reason, the impact just wasn't there, and it remains one of the weaker entries in the series. One reason may have been it was just too easy. I mean, there really weren't any challenging moments in this entire game. I flew right through the game, and that was it.
By the end of the game, I felt like I hadn't truly earned the title of champion, but I will commend the game for presenting one final cinematic challenge in the form of AZ, or Az, or Oz? Not sure what his name is.
Az.
The former king of the Kalos region and one of the few through lines of the game's story. I appreciated the attention to detail when it came to creating the region and filling it with history books and lore, but by the time I fought the Great King and things started to get interesting, the game was over. Just like that, and while the end of Pokemon's introduction to the third dimension wasn't very memorable, we were about to enter a new phase of 3D Pokemon that really felt like it was finally coming into its own. Released in the fall of 2016, just in time to commemorate the franchise's 20th anniversary, Pokemon Sun and Moon introduced the world to the Alola region. Based on real-life Hawaii, Sun and Moon brought with it plenty of refreshing changes to the series formula and exponentially expanded on the 3D gameplay introduced with X and Y. For starters, the game utilizes full-sized 3D models for the overworld and full use of the analog stick, giving players full motion with which to explore the world of Alola. Getting to move around this region is a blast, and since your player character is almost always running now, without the need to hold down the B button, the map was made so much bigger to account for the new traversal speed. The environments are bigger, your mobility is increased thanks to cool mechanics such as the ride Pokemon, and there are several islands to check out that benefit from the unique tropical setting.
Sun and Moon did several massive things to the franchise. First of all, we finally got rid of those damned HMs. Get that shit out of here! Also, the introduction of regional forms, without a doubt one of the coolest ideas in the franchise's history. We got to see some of our favorite Pokemon get an all new form and types. Some weren't great, some were badass, but they were all super rad. Z moves were really awesome, super powerful attacks. The trials were a neat change, and okay, I cannot hold on to this any longer. You know what the greatest addition to Sun and Moon was? My boy, the MVP, the bringer of peace and happiness.
Please don't do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my boy, Rowlet.
Knocked over Score Bunny.
Sorry. Look at this dude. I mean, look at him. Are you looking? Keep looking. Can you find me anyone with a more solid design? He has a bow tie that are leaves. I mean, he went from having a bow to having a bow. Oh man, don't even get me started on Decidueye now. Look at this badass. It's a ghost owl that shoots arrows. Look at these two. Look at this cute ass mofo wearing his older brother's hood. I mean, you've seen all the memes where Rowlet looks back. The entire reason for doing these videos is so he gush all about kick-ass
So it looks like he can go on for a while. I'll just move on. As far as changes to the gameplay go, we have a couple of really sweet ones. First and foremost, and probably most obviously, is the elimination of traditional gyms. Gone are fighting for badges against single-type teams, and in its place are gym trials. Quests on each island with various tasks to complete which end with a battle against a totem Pokemon, one that's stronger than any other wild Pokemon in the area, and that can call a sidekick to fight alongside it. I personally feel that the gym trials present a unique challenge that can sometimes feel one-sided when you're not equipped to deal with the constant stat increases and sidekick buffs the enemy dishes out. And after the trials, you discover that there isn't actually a Pokemon League either, but rather that it's being built throughout the duration of the game, and once you get there, you gotta face several characters you've met on each island as they now represent the Elite Four. After that comes quite possibly my favorite sequence of events in any Pokemon game, period. Once you reach the summit of the Pokemon League, you are met with your final challenge, Professor Kukui, who's been constantly mentoring you throughout your journey and who faces off with you alongside his partner Pokemon, the starter you and your rival left behind, which puts you at an inherent disadvantage. It's the most unique champion battle yet, and once you win, it feels truly deserved. You are taking the mantle as the region's first ever champion, who now has to defend your position from those who wish to take it in subsequent visits to the league. Every new battle presents a new challenger and is an interesting incentive to come back and keep playing through the Elite Four.
But I'm sorry, you guys just can't hang with these boys. If you think these two are anything below flawless, I will fight each and every one of you.
I'm serious. I will fight you all to the death.
Whoa.
If you say anything negative about my boys.
Dude, come
I
on.
will come to your place and I
Whoa,
will
hey,
write your choice words.
hey! Buddy, you don't have to threaten them like that. Come on. Deep breaths. Calm down. Rowlet's cool. Rowlet's cool. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. Just, okay, take a seat. Yeah, right. Deep breaths. We'll continue with the video. Right? We got a job to do. We got to keep going. So just, please. You good?
Yeah, so I like Rowlet. What else? Oh yeah, the Ultra Sun and Moon games. Now for me personally, I wasn't a big fan of base Sun and Moon. They were perhaps my least favorite Pokemon experience to date. On the other hand, Ultra Sun and Moon, I like them a whole lot more.
Maybe it's because it was my second time through Alola, so I knew what to expect. It was just little things they did.
Now okay, I got a note. The Ultra games were pretty much the exact same game, just with minor tweaks. So there really isn't a whole lot of point to owning both the games. Or three of them.
I gotta make some returns.
Other things added were the Ultra Wormholes, which was really cool, but a pretty annoying minigame at times to catch all the legendaries. Once you have a lot of them, it gets pretty difficult to find the few you have left. And the Ultra games had the best post-game out of any of them with Team Rainbow Rocket, where they brought in all the previous evil team leaders and you had to battle each and every one of them, and all of them were equipped with their corresponding legendaries.
For me, the fact that the Ultra games changed the first champion from Kukui to Hau was a little disappointing, and Lily, who receives the most care and sees the most development in her story, which arguably makes me believe that she's the actual main character of these games, is a little watered down to support the changes that these games made to the climax. Granted, the Ultra Wormhole stuff is all really cool, but I still prefer the overall experience of the original Sun and Moon, which is the game that I find myself going back to the most often whenever I need a Pokemon fix. I mean, the quality of life here is just the best. It feels like a breeze to get through, and it's also a rewarding experience as well. With all of its little surprises, like how bag-hating Nebby, the mysterious Pokemon that was so cinematically introduced at the start of the game, and who plays a huge role throughout the rest of it, turns out to be able to evolve into the box art legendary? That blew my mind! It's such a cool concept that never ceases to make me a little giddy just thinking about it. Plus, as a fitting celebration of Pokemon's 20th anniversary, you get to fight Red and Blue once again, but this time at the Battle Tree, similar to the Battle Tower, but in a tree. Just as you were able to in my other favorite Pokemon games, Gold and Silver.
Alright, we've been positive for too long now. Let's get into my gripes with the games.
First of all, I think Team Skull are just a bunch of jackasses. I mean, what's with the goofy dance they do all the time? Like, how can you take them seriously when they're doing this the whole time?
Yo, give us your Pokemon, cause we thugs. Yeah, that's why we robbing you and serving you at the same time.
I even hated their theme songs. Why does it have lyrics? Or just some guy mumbling?
Like I mentioned earlier, Ultra is nearly the same game as opposed to being sequels like Black and White 2, so we essentially got sold the same game twice.
And for me, across both the Ultra and the base games, I loved my journey through the Alola region. Between the new characters, who are arguably given some of the most interesting character development in the entire franchise, and the story that builds naturally to a dynamic and powerful climax, the game feels the most like a narratively driven one, and by the end of it, I find myself reflecting on my time with my team and my friends so warmly. The fact that you can bring any Pokemon in the Sun and Moon via the Pokemon Bank makes creating your dream team as much of a reality as it could be, which also adds to the overall replay value of these games, seeing all the ways you can start over with different teams from the get-go. But for the sake of brevity and keeping this video under 5 hours long, I will just end my thoughts by saying this. I believe that Pokemon Sun and Moon provides such a different yet rewarding experience for both veteran and new players alike. And what a fitting end to the final chapter of the handheld Pokemon experience. But now, the next generation of Pokemon was about to jump to the large screen format that fans had been asking for decades.
And finally, we come to Pokemon Sword and Shield, which were released in the fall of 2019. And it received mixed opinions, to say the least. They were the first new mainline games on the Switch, not counting the Let's Go games, which were really just kind of experiments. These games had a lot of expectations. For one thing, they were bringing the franchise to a main Nintendo console as opposed to a handheld system, so the games needed to have greatly improved visuals, all new sprites, and be a major advancement to the series.
Well. Yeah, about that.
The games definitely looked like Pokemon from the past. The sprites were essentially the same as they were since X and Y, and they did very little to push the series any further than it was already at.
Despite the controversy and the backlash, Pokemon Sword and Shield do have their positives. For one thing, the move to HD is noticeable, even if the games aren't all that we'd hoped they'd be graphically. The towns are full of intricate little details like posters and ads for in-game products. It feels like this game tries to increase the scope of every aspect that fans have become familiar with over the years, yet only succeed in some. For example, not only are gym battles back, but they're held in huge sports arenas with crowds cheering and reacting to Pokemon moves whenever someone gets the edge in battle and whenever Pokemon Dynamaxes, which is the new gimmick introduced to Sword and Shield where, once per battle, you can gigantify a single Pokemon on your team for 3 turns and unleash enormous and devastating attacks. They're a spectacle to behold and can really change the atmosphere of a match. Walking out onto the pitch right before a battle, being able to hear nothing but the roar of the crowd as the stadium lights start to illuminate your figure emerging from the shadows is always chilling. And after you greet your opponent, the greatest gym battle theme starts to play and only hypes you up even more.
On the other hand, the wild area is a new open world-ish mechanic where you can fully control the camera as you freely explore various different terrains and encounter all sorts of Pokemon. Well, the ones that Game Freak decided to actually include in the game. As cool of an idea as it may seem, the wild area feels kinda empty in that there really isn't a huge incentive to explore every nook and cranny
Like some other games on the Switch.
Aside from encountering Pokemon in raid battles, a new system where 4 players battle to capture the same Dynamax Pokemon.
Speaking of the story, that's another part of the game that's supposed to be big, but isn't.
The whole time you're running around while the world starts to burn slowly and every adult in the game assures you that things will be fine, just keep challenging those gyms, kiddo. Oh, what? The evil corporate suit who wants to exploit this region's resources? Don't worry about him. Hey look, you can play fetch with your grass gorilla.
Let's talk about the actual focus of these games themselves while we're on the topic. The Pokemon. Encountering Pokemon works a lot like it did in Pokemon Let's Go, where you can either choose to approach a Pokemon openly walking around in the overworld, or walk around a patch of grass and invite a random encounter like the games before, making wild battles so much more manageable, especially in caves. Getting to choose when you battle a wild Pokemon and exactly which one is a nice touch. And aside from being the first Pokemon games to not include a national dex, which is annoying, sure, but not a total deal breaker, Sword and Shield introduced new Pokemon that are, for the most part, pretty damn good. You got Donkey Kong, Soccer Bunny, Double H207, a Sad Fat Dragon, Master Hand, Duggos, and my personal favorite, Toxtricity, which I have to call by its actual name because this punk deserves the utmost respect. Plus, we got a whole slew of new regional variants which include Pokemon from generations other than the first one. Pokemon design in this game was so important to me because our first time seeing them would have been in HD and on a more powerful console, so I'm glad that most of them are able to make a good first impression. And another fantastic new mechanic to help manage all these new Pokemon was the addition of being able to access your storage box remotely from anywhere you want.
Speaking of great mechanics, let's talk about the cam system. I mean, how could you not love cooking for your Pokemon and playing fetch with them, despite half the time not even noticing you threw the ball? Hey, it's over there. Go get it. Dynamaxing was an okay feature, although it was really only cool if the Pokemon had a Gigantamax form. Some of them turned out to be really awesome looking, and it was some sort of variation of the Mega Evolutions.
And getting to play Pokemon with an actual controller was such a nice thing. I have gotten so tired of the DS and other handheld systems that are so tiny in my massive gorilla hands. Oh, and speaking of gorillas,
Yo, Rillaboom is straight up my spirit animal. And his Gigantamax form turns him into Neil Peart.
I mean, that is top tier starter, along with my boy Grook over here.
But enough of the good stuff. Some other things the game got wrong, besides the obvious visuals and the Pokédex, is the incredibly worthless team with Team Yell. I mean, I thought Skull was bad. These guys are just supporters of Marnie. Great. We get absolutely no legendaries. We got our two main ones, Zacian and Zamazenta Zamazenta, which in their base forms are just bleh. And then Eternatus, which I thought was cool, but not everyone shares that opinion.
One very new feature of Sword and Shield is the implementation of DLC. On one hand, nobody likes microtransactions, and having to pay extra to be able to play a complete game kinda sucks. But on the other hand, Game Freak had always done that with each of its third releases, where they'd put out what's essentially the same game as its predecessors, but with minor tweaks and improvements. So this time around, instead of an unnecessary extra game, you pay essentially the same amount as a separate game, but get to skip straight ahead to the new stuff. The DLC was released in 2 packs and featured their own unique stories and additional Pokemon added to the Pokédex. The first of these DLCs was the Isle of Armor expansion, in which the player is invited to an island where they are to train under the tutelage of the wise Master Mustard, and learn the ways of martial arts, or run around chasing slowpokes and eating magical mushrooms. One of those. It was nice getting to pick up my Switch again and play Pokemon after setting it down for such a long time, and in the DLC, Game Freak unexpectedly included one of the coolest features in the entire franchise, Pokemon getting to follow you around in the overworld. It's so fun to see your main team buddies out in the open, and the new areas presented to you are interesting enough to explore. Plus, you receive a free legendary Pokemon in the form of Cubfu, who is an absolute badass, and evolves into the mighty Urshifu, who comes in 2 different forms depending on which tower you train it in.
The second DLC, the Crown Tundra, again brought in the ability to have a Pokemon follow you around. This was the big one. It brought in all the legendaries in the max raid lair, along with brand new versions of the legendary birds, so you can just have a whole team of the birds. And whoever's idea it was to make the shiny versions of the new bird variants with their original colors, good job, man, because that was awesome. We saw the new legendary Calyrex along with his trusty steed that you can make into a ghost or ice type. It was a great way to close out the game, bringing back a lot of Pokemon in the national decks, although still missing quite a bit with around 230 still out of the game.
Still, we can't help but play these games despite their flaws and imperfections. So overall, with the DLC and everything, are Sword and Shield perfect Pokemon games? No, not really. Is Pokemon a perfect game series overall? I wouldn't say so. They're as much a part of us now as they ever have been. We know they're not perfect, and we know we've said a lot already, but we still have plenty more to say about Pokemon as a whole. So, stick around until next time to catch the final installment in this trilogy of nostalgia and a look back at one of the most influential franchises in both of our lives.
We hope to see you then. And in the meantime, be sure to stock up on the revives and full resource for that final push. Thanks everyone. Brutal.
Cool.
That's a wrap.